There's a quiet conflict that so many high achieving women experience after narcissistic abuse. And it's this conflict of, I want somebody amazing in my life. I want to have a great partner. I want to come home to a hot, hunky guy or girl who, maybe not hunky girl, but you know what I mean, who I can flop down on the couch with at the end of the day and just like fall into that person. And I don't have to worry about being blame shifted or everything is my fault. I don't have to worry about feeling like I'm making a big deal out of a nothing when we have arguments. There's that part of you that wants that. And then there's another part that whispers, never again. I am never losing myself in someone else again. It's too risky. That doesn't exist for me. It's easy for other people, but not for me. And today in this episode, we're going to talk about living with that inner conflict. So there's a part of you that wants true connection, that wants a great relationship, that wants emotional intimacy. And there's also another part of you that is equally, if not more so, afraid of it, and perhaps even terrified of true emotional intimacy. There is a psychologist who has said before in her work that women who choose narcissistic partners often themselves have a fear of emotional intimacy, and they unconsciously choose partners with some sort of built-in distance to emotional intimacy. That person might be narcissistic. That person might live far away and they never get to see them. That person might have addiction issues that he's hiding, et cetera, et cetera. So some food for thought there. I also want to talk to you today about when we live in this conflict, sometimes we think it's just about our love life that it's impacting. But this, I want it, but I also don't, conflict will show up in every area of your life. It will show up with how you function in your career, with your kids, if you're a parent, and also with your friendships. This built-in protection against true emotional intimacy. So let's dive right in. So first thing, narcissistic abuse doesn't just break your heart. It completely rewires how your brain is wired and how it communicates with your nervous system. You literally get mapped differently. And so what happens when you are in a relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner or with a parent or caregiver, where your emotional needs are minimized or they're made wrong, where your boundaries are consistently violated, or where you slowly, your identity and your confidence and your ambition and your goals in life are slowly eroded over time, you learn that love is danger. You learn, and I mean, you know, if you're hearing this, I invite you to think back, does this pattern just exist with your ex and with the people that you dated after your ex? Or does this pattern seem to go further back than that? So we learn that boundaries are something that aren't really safe. We don't know how to have boundaries. And we learn that being vulnerable equals a weakness, that somebody might take advantage of us. So it becomes, these beliefs over time become something that you're not even aware or conscious of necessarily that you're doing. It just surfaces. You'll know that you have something going on when you have patterns in relationships, not just your romantic relationships. So you might intellectually know, I deserve better. I want better. I know that I could get better than my ex. There are a lot of women that I've worked with, and I've experienced this personally, where you might have huge goals and ambitions and dreams for your life, and you're super successful in your career, but then you might choose somebody who isn't that successful. He, he doesn't have the drive that you have. He's, it's not like he's necessarily sitting at home playing video games, and doing nothing, but he just doesn't have the same orientation towards realizing his full potential like you might. So you'll wind up, you'll logically know I can do better, but your body, your nervous system, and your subconscious programming is on a completely different channel where it's still choosing what feels familiar, even though logically you know better. So this is why you might date somebody who's actually pretty awesome and who is emotionally available and who is securely attached, and start to feel like that person is getting on your nerves after a few dates. Or you might realize, I don't know if I'm like that attracted to this person. So you might actually start creating distance. The flip side of this is if you are dating, you might find that you don't have very much tolerance at all for ambiguity or any type of inconsistency. You will probably cut people off immediately. Like if they don't respond to your texts within a certain amount of time that you deem is acceptable, if they don't respond to your initial emails and online dating within a certain window, you will just immediately assign a meaning that they're not interested. You'll be premature on your reactions, your emotional reactions when you're faced with ambiguity and uncertainty and, the early stages of dating. And this is where I find a lot of women get tripped up, especially when they're re-entering dating or they're trying to date after leaving a narcissistic relationship. When it comes to your career, you might also be hyper independent in your career, meaning you have a hard time asking for help, or you might have a hard time delegating if you lead a team. You might think, oh, it's just better and easier if I do it myself. There's an underlying belief it's safer for me just to rely on myself. Relying on other people isn't emotionally safe. So you might find that you feel increasingly resentful in your career, and you might find that you're not delegating and you're not asking for help because you've learned over time that asking for help from other people always leads to disappointment, or it costs you a lot of your emotional well-being. And so what happens is you get resentful. You might start numbing yourself to the pressure you're feeling from your career. A lot of the ways I've seen women numb themselves from the emotional pressure, the stress, or the resentment that they're experiencing in their careers is maybe they're spending too much on stuff that makes them feel good in the moment, but it's like a Band-Aid. It's not really fixing the root issue. They might zone out on their phones, doom scrolling on TikTok. They might have a couple of glasses of wine every night, or have a gummy or a two every night, whatever, to numb this emotional uneasiness that she's living with every day in her career, because the hyper independence and the trauma response is showing up there as well. She might rely on her career to give her a sense of self-worth and to feel valued. She probably relied on her partner, even though that relationship was dysfunctional. There is an underlying part of her that feels inherently not enough, and she might have used her partner to boost her self-worth or to bring a sense of value into her life, even though that relationship was dysfunctional. And after leaving that relationship, what happens, in my experience, personally and professionally, is turning to your career to give you that sense of value, and then being over reliant on your career as the thing that makes you who you are, the thing that gives you value, the thing that gives you worth. And what you'll soon realize, if you haven't already, is that will never work. And what often happens is you will find yourself feeling increasingly not only resentful, but empty, unfulfilled, even though you should be grateful because of all the stuff you've got and like the amount of achievements you have accomplished. It doesn't seem to be enough. So there is that. And a lot of times women will turn to their careers kind of as like a safety protective mechanism, because work is professional, especially if you're in a corporate environment. You don't have to be vulnerable. In fact, in a lot of corporate environments, it's kind of frowned upon to be vulnerable. There's a lot of places in your career that you can hide and not have to face your own emotions. So that is how this can show up in your career. And you might also, if you feel perhaps lingering shame over the choices that you made in your marriage or your last relationship, what you might also find that you're doing is using your career and the stuff you accomplish in your career to compensate and cover up that shame that you are feeling still, that's still in your nervous system, that's still in the wiring here, as a way to compensate or overcompensate for that and to make yourself look less like a red flag, if you will. So that becomes armor that you then move through the world. And this doesn't, again, just affect your love life or your career. It also bleeds over into how you parent. You might feel triggered easily by your child's emotional intensity. You might make their emotions wrong because you essentially minimize your own emotions or judge your own feelings, et cetera, et cetera. You might find that you are there present physically for your kids, but that you struggle to be present for your kids emotionally. They might have everything provided for them that they need. They might go to school on time, have everything, their food on their plates, clothes on their backs, all kinds of stuff, hobbies. But when it comes to emotionally connecting with your own child or your children, there might be some struggle there. And you might find that just like your romantic relationships, the same types of triggers surface with your own kids. There's struggles with boundaries, there's struggles with you being vulnerable because again, you've learned that vulnerability equals weakness. So that's how it might show up with your parenting. And then friendships, you might find that you stay in lower quality friendships, or you might find that your friendships tend to be surface level, meaning nobody ever really knows the real you. Or you might be the friend in your group that is the strong person, the one that people come to for advice all of the time, the one that, you're kind of like the rock or the anchor. But nobody in your friend group is that for you. Like you're pouring into other people, but you're not getting that in return. And it's not on the friends necessarily, although you might be friends with people who are incapable of being that for you, just generally. Most of the time, we are unconsciously choosing those types of relationships because once again, you don't have to be vulnerable. You don't have to open yourself up to the risk of potential rejection or somebody saying something that disappoints you. And those are things that come as a byproduct of being vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, you might not always receive the response or the behavior that you want. And after we experienced narcissistic abuse, we live with this inner conflict of, I want it, but I don't. I want it, but I've learned that it comes at a really high price tag. And that over time produces more of the same type of relationship dynamics. So what do we do? So there's a few things. I'll talk about what we do. Here's the tricky part. We keep ourselves here. We might say it's the people on dating apps. It's the men in my area. Oh, I live in a small town. Oh, my kids need me too much right now. Oh, work is too busy. I need to lose 15 pounds first. We say all of these things to rationalize. I had a coach one time who broke rationalize down to rational lies. We tell rational lies to ourselves, like an addict, just one more time. I'm just going to use one more time to keep doing what we're doing because what you're doing, at least it's familiar. At least you have some control over what you're doing. And it's not the price though, is that, like I mentioned in the last episode, we never experience what it is that we want. We never get to experience the joy and the emotional connection of like truly feeling safe in a relationship, like truly being able to relax and exhale. And like your nervous system just feels completely at ease with somebody. We never like give ourselves the opportunity for that. So, and when we don't do that over time, we become hardened. We stop taking risks. I spoke with somebody one time, miserable in her job, miserable. And it wasn't really the job that was making her miserable. It was her trauma that was making her miserable. She overgave, overfunctioned, lacked boundaries, believed her worth was rooted in how much she could do for other people. And, while we were working on resolving some of those things, she kept rationalizing, I only have 5 more years. Even though I have this beautiful business idea that I want to create and I want to develop, I think I'm just going to stick with the safe route. So understand that if you recognize yourself here and you're like, I want love, but what is happening is that over time, your nervous system loses tolerance for the inevitable stress that is going to come up in the dating journey. Like I said before, you'll prematurely cut people off too soon. You'll get super frustrated really easy. You don't have a lot of tolerance for bullshit. There's going to be bullshit that comes on the journey of dating. You'll make meaning into things. You'll read too far into things. You'll start analyzing, or like I said before, you'll get with somebody who's really amazing and then start creating distance, right? So all of these things are keeping you safe, but they're not leading you to what you say you want. They're leading you to, I'm going to stay protected. I'm going to keep protecting myself. And the brutal irony here is that this type of trauma that you've experienced, psychological trauma, emotional trauma, relationship trauma, isn't healed by staying by yourself. It's not healed by not being vulnerable and being hyper independent, although it does feel safe. It does feel like you're in control. This type of trauma is healed in safe relationships. And if you're not giving yourself the opportunity to create those safe relationships, what you're ultimately doing is perpetuating that trauma. And as we get older, we tend to be a little bit more inflexible. We tend to be a little bit more set in our ways. And the love that you want is always going to be outside of your comfort zone. So if this episode made sense for you, if it felt like, shit, like I feel like I'm being called out right now, good. If you want to learn more about how you might be able to break your own cycle of relationship trauma that is not only showing up in your love life, but it's showing up in how you entertain friendships, how you show up at work, how you parent, then you can go to my free masterclass at bethanydotson.com/masterclass. And I walk you through the mistakes that a lot of women make when they're healing this type of trauma. I talk about why traditional therapy often fails. It's helpful, but it's not the entire recipe for healing this type of trauma. And then I walk you through a 5-step process for helping yourself get to the next step of attracting and having emotionally safe relationships. And then maybe if you've seen that masterclass, or maybe if you've listened to numerous episodes of this show and you're like, okay, I am really ready. I'm really ready to work on my stuff. Like my home life isn't working for me. My career isn't working for me. I know that I am meant for more. I know that love still exists, but I also know that I'm the common denominator. And you're ready to make some serious, significant, life-changing transformation, then I invite you to go and book a free breakthrough call at bethanydotson.com/talk. This call is about being really honest and about helping you have a breakthrough in what you believe is possible for you and helping you feel into the reality of what you could have. And also identifying the ways in which you're holding yourself back. A lot of women come to these calls and they're like, yeah, I'm stuck. I'm pretty sure I'm like part of it, but I don't exactly know what exactly I'm doing that is keeping me from what I want. This call is going to help you identify the exact things that you're doing that are holding you back. So again, bethanydotson.com/talk if you're ready to have a serious conversation about changing your life. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you on the next episode.